wasn't a robbery. It was a plan. Now the prosecution just got up here and told you a really nice, polished story about Cameron Poole. Now, they told you about how Cameron Poole was making sleight of hand maneuvers. As you've heard from Kaminsky, they told you about how Cameron Poole was using fake bracelets to skim money from the park. They told you about how Cameron Poole went up to Haley Floyd and threatened her with a knife. No one is contesting that. In fact, defense agrees full-heartedly that Cameron Poole did these things. But we're not here to talk about Cameron Poole. We're here to talk about Whit Bowman. And for all you've been hearing about Cameron Poole, Whit Bowman has been strangely absent in some of the testimony you've heard today. Now, the job of the prosecution is to link Cameron Poole's actions with that of Whit Bowman's. That is complicity. They have failed. Now, the defense has given you that link. We've given you our own story, and we've corroborated it, not only with our witnesses, but with the prosecution's. And our story pointed to a much different source. Our story told you about a possibility. Possibility that J.C. Longstreet and Haley Floyd were cooking the books to cover up for the fact that they were stealing money all the way back from 2010, before Whit Bowman got there. And then when it all went sour, they enlisted Cameron Poole's help and staged a robbery. They then met Cameron Poole at a location later on to split the money that Poole had taken. Now, you don't have to believe us. That's because the defense is unique in its position. And it is unique in that the defense does not have to prove anything to you. All we have to show is that a conspiracy was a possibility. And if there was a possibility that Whit Bowman was not involved, you can't find him guilty. Because that's burden of proof. And that's a burden that prosecution holds. Now, burden of proof is not a term that is taken lightly in court of law. That is because it is one of the highest burdens in our legal system. And what this means is that prosecution had to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that their version of what happened that summer of 2012 was the only possible one. So let's look at what the prosecution told you. Now, starting in robbery in the first degree, the prosecution's case hinges on two testimonies. That of Shelton's and that of Haley Floyd. Now, Shelton told you about a couple of conversations. He told you that he heard Whit Bowman say, "Teach Longstreet a lesson, and I'm bringing you a blade tomorrow to Cameron Poole. You may need it for a job." But these are words, members of the jury. I can say, "I'm going to burn down the White House tomorrow." Unless I do it, I'm not going to be arrested for burning down the White House. So let's look at some of the statements a little bit more closely. He said, "I'm going to bring you a blade for a job." Mr. Shelton doesn't know what this job is. In fact, Mr. Shelton conceded that it's possible that Whit Bowman worked in another place. What do you use a blade for? Opening a box, cutting a string. At no point was robbery or threatening ever mentioned in these conversations. Well, that's reasonable doubt. Now, Mr. Shelton mentioned a handoff of a knife. But let's look at what he actually said, because what he said to Kimball was a glittering object. That's what was in the report, and that's what you heard Shelton say. He wasn't sure it was a knife. He just knew that it was a glittering object. Mr. Bowman could have handed Cameron Poole a set of keys, for all we know. In fact, the only way to prove that Whit Bowman is guilty of robbery is to connect the knife. And this is where Floyd comes in. Or rather, it doesn't, because Floyd can't connect the knife. Floyd wasn't able to tell you what the knife looked like. She said she saw something from a distance that was glittery. You know who else saw something glittery? Shelton. And we all know how credible a glittering object is when being used to convict an innocent man, don't we? It's not. And Floyd, in fact, Miss Buckley, her directing attorney, testified that her witness, the only thing she said was that she did not know where Cameron Poole got the knife. That's reasonable doubt coming from the prosecution itself. And if they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that knife was Whit Bowman's and was given to Whit Bowman with the intent to threaten Haley Floyd, they have no case for robbery in the first degree. Now let's talk about theft by deception. Whit Bowman was strangely absent in a lot of the testimony here. Now, from Floyd, who was the one who investigated all of this, told you her main suspect was not Whit Bowman. It was Cameron Poole. It was Cameron Poole's locker she went to. And it was Cameron Poole who was told to leave the ticket booth. And it was Cameron Poole who came back and stole money from that very booth. Now, where was Whit Bowman? He wasn't there. You heard that from multiple witnesses. Did you see Whit Bowman? No. Did you see Whit Bowman? No. Haley Floyd herself testified she did not see Whit Bowman anywhere near the ticket booth. Now, Whit Bowman got up here and said some contradictory statements. The prosecution likes to point to the possibility that Whit Bowman conceded to theft by deception, that he had been using the bracelets. Whit Bowman told you himself that he was being asked question after question after question by Officer Kimball. He was being yelled at. He was being harassed. He was under duress. And when you're under duress, members of the jury, you'll do anything to make it stop, even if that means saying something that's not true. In fact, Whit Bowman got up here and said some contradictory statements himself. He said he heard a gunshot, then he said he didn't hear a gunshot. He said he used the knife, but then when asked by defense if he meant to further Poole's crimes, he said no. That's reasonable doubt. And here's a question I'd like you to keep in mind, because this was something that was not contended by prosecution, and that was the evidence that Jackie Hunter found. Jackie Hunter investigated the trailer. She investigated it in 2010 when she found bracelets in the Office Park trailer that were numbered sequentially. These are the normal bracelets. Haley Floyd talked about this bracelet system. But you know what else she found? She found bracelets that weren't numbered. Bracelets that aren't used. Fake bracelets. In 2010. That is an entire year before Whit Bowman worked at Rockterworld, isn't it? So why were they there? Now, Jackie Hunter told you about some other things she found. She found spreadsheets in Haley Floyd's office trailer. She found plumbing invoices. And she saw a meeting. At least Isaacs did. Now, all of this evidence points to a plan. Because it wasn't a robbery, it was a plan. Which is why we're asking you to find Whit Bowman not guilty.
Time.
Prosecution, rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. Before I begin, inquire as to how much time I have remaining.
I have 2 minutes and 51 seconds.
Me as well. Okay. Line 52, I'm not still here.
Now proceed.
Yeah.
Members of the jury, the defense just came up here and told you a conspiracy story. What evidence did you hear about today that shows you that? One witness. One witness today. It was Jackie Hunter. If you recall the testimony of Ms. Hunter, recall she could not remember the date of several different things. In fact, I counted the number of times this witness couldn't remember the dates. 6 different times. It wasn't until the attorney told her it was 2010. Members of the jury, they had the chance to come up here and cross-examine Mr. Floyd. They had the chance to actually cross-examine the person that they're blaming. They're blaming the victim, the person that was robbed at knife point. And they had the chance to come up here and cross-examine that witness. What did they get? Nothing. Nothing. Members of the jury, they come up here and told you it wasn't a robbery. It was a plan. Members of the jury, it was a plan. Whit Bowman planned to rob Rockterwell on August 30th. Whit Bowman planned to steal money from this company. Whit Bowman planned to give Cameron Poole a knife. Whit Bowman planned to tell Cameron Poole to teach their boss a lesson. Whit Bowman then planned to go to the Tunnel of Terror. Whit Bowman planned to help Cameron Poole escape. And members of the jury, the only thing Whit Bowman didn't plan was getting caught. Members of the jury, when Whit Bowman planned the scheme, and when Whit Bowman planned the robbery, that's exactly how he's guilty. Members of the jury, we ask that you find the defendant guilty for complicity of theft by deception and complicity of robbery in the first degree. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.